guys, so we're not going to bore you because, we're not going to do that. We have some awesome authors, and what I think we should do first is, because everybody likes to do a bio and do all that, but I like to learn 3 things that you wanted more people to know about you and your work. So let's do that. Let's start. Maika.
Okay, I'm Maika Llaneza, and I wrote the Goblins. 3 things. I'm a middle school behavior education teacher in Mandeville, Louisiana. I was born in the Philippines, and I moved here when I was 7 years old, so been over 40 years. And third thing, I don't know. I'm just really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alan Wells, and 3 things about me. In the past 5 months, I've been to 6 different countries. I have my full-time job is as a mechanical engineer, and I'm just learning how to swim.
Hi, I'm Robyn Mall. Thanks for having me. 3 things. So I really enjoy Southern folk stories. I'd love to do that one day, something related to that. Another creative outlet is just going and putting floral arrangements together. It's something where I don't have to think very much, and it's very calming and zen for me. And the third one is my daughter's here today, and so it's her birthday. So happy birthday, Ellie.
Buddy, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Good, thanks. So I'm Pamela Courtney. I am from Natchitoches, Louisiana, one of the first settlements in the Louisiana Purchase. 3 things about me is that I love entertaining with my family. I love cooking and serving them. That's just like one of my best favorite things. The second thing is that I became a homeschooling auntie. Started homeschooling my nephews, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also the most rewarding thing that I ever did. And the third thing about me is I'm very shy and a huge introvert, but then I like being around people, so I don't understand that.
See, to me, that's better than a bio, because happy birthday. And also, we're going to get into it. Let's just start with you, since you just said you like to entertain, Miss Pamela.
Oh, Lord.
A season for Fishin. You know how when you're in school, they have to open the book, right? Okay. I do my best. Now, I just want to know, who started the tradition in your family? And does mustard have to be in the batter of the fish?
Oh, you're trying to start something. Want to be starting something. Mustard does not have to be in the batter. It should not be in the batter. My dad, may he rest in peace, would argue differently because he loved mustard in the batter. Who started the tradition of the fish fry in our family? Really, I don't know. It was something that grew in our neighborhood. Every Friday, you see the older people going out with their fishing rods hanging out of the back of their car. And then when they came back, the women would be out on the front porch cleaning the fish. You're here, Marvin Gaye playing on the record player. We go from house to house tasting all the different kinds of fish on the street. So I don't know who started it. It was just a neighborhood thing, and I thought it was just specific to my neighborhood. I really didn't know that it was a Louisiana thing until I was older, so, yeah.
I saw some head shake when you said no mustard over here. No, it belongs. Now, y'all took y'all's books. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
This is my copy.
That's your copy. Okay, my bad.
I need to reference. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, we're going to come to you anyway. I loved that you decided to, number one, talk about pineapples in an interesting way. Can you tell the class, as I open up your book, why you chose to be traditional and also introduce the rest of the world to a story about correction, which is funny because you just corrected me.
It's a teacher thing, I guess. So the first question is about pineapples. When I was young, this legend of the pineapple really stood out. It was a scary story that if you look at the pineapple, you see little eyes. And my aunt would say, oh, that's because these people were bad, so they got turned into a pineapple. So I really thought there were like prisoners stuck in that pineapple forever. Yeah, so that really stayed with me. That's based off the legend of the pineapple, which is found out later that it is something that is shared for generations. It was basically a kid that was misbehaving, not wanting to help out her mom, and she kept saying, "Oh, I can't find this, I can't find that. I'm sorry, I can't help you." And so the mom kind of cursed her and said, "Well, then you should be a pineapple so you could have a million eyes, so you could find the things that you need to find." Something. Yeah, Filipino mythology is a little scary, but yeah, that stuck with me. That's why I chose that. It's a mashup between that and another scary goblin story.
And y'all should definitely get all of these books. They're really, really, really good. Now, this one in particular, if you are a parent at home, she used some words, okay? Can you talk about the use of the words that you used and why you want the parent to learn in your book as well as the child?
All right. Well, thanks for the kind words, Kayla. And also, Maika, I really appreciated that you used a durian as a stink bomb in your story. So pineapple is not like the only fruit there. That was pretty awesome. I am really passionate about craft. I've loved literature since I've been very little. So that's where the words come from. They think when I write a book, first I'll go with their story and then I try to enhance it with literary language because I think kids appreciate when we treat them, as valuable and smart and that they can get it. I think they intuitively understand when words are good. So I don't know if that answered your question.
I learned something new. This is
Okay.
all of them were excellent. But I said, now hold on, let me Google what that means. In here. Okay, beautiful illustrations. We're gonna get to that in a second too, all of y'all. All right now. Yvonne Clark and her engineering spark. Now, you did something, I'm not being partial to anybody, just different things that I noticed in each of your books. You said, many people believe that superheroes leap tall buildings or hail from galaxies far, far away. They almost never tell you that superheroes exist right in your neighborhood. Why would you start the book that way?
Really just because I know kids love superheroes. And so I wanted to take like a superhero approach when I was writing the story. So when you like go throughout the story, you have like these superhero cues for Yvonne Clark. So every time her engineering spark is about to present itself, there's like this superhero cue that follows.
All right, coming back to, I worked hard on that. What really was the thought behind the book? So is it, because, books are for interpretation for anything. I got out of it, you know what? You try really hard on something, and somebody always comes through trying to mess it up, right? But what is the main point you want the people to get out of your book?
Well, like in most of my books, it starts with a character that I fall in love with. And so I wasn't out to teach anyone anything originally, but it's been lovely to see how people get things from the book once it's released. So the idea started when my daughter was a toddler and she saw a little web on our potted plants garden. And she said, that spider must have worked hard on that. And I had never felt bad about ruining a spider's web or conscious about it until that moment. I'm like, wow, they work all day, making these things. And so that sparked the idea for a character. And I just started feeling compassionate about, the creative journey and someone working hard on something. And since the book has been released, I realized I say I worked hard on that a lot. And people will call me out on that now. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this was ingrained in me from the beginning. But I hope people take away from it, that the power of community, because PR starts as a solo artist, and the way she's able to continue is because she meets friends, even though the friend eats her project, which is kind of hard, but they work through it. And also just to keep persevering. I think there's so much that kids can learn about the growth mindset when we create. Yeah.
I'll stay on this side for a second to ask, what do you hope people really get out of a season for Fishin?
So, one of the main things that I want people to understand is how culturally diverse Louisiana is, and from the way we speak, from how we cook, the kind of music we have. And one of the things when I was growing up, I spoke, it's not called patois, but we had little sprinklings of different languages. I thought I was literally speaking, not going to be politically correct, but like Blackanese. I thought that was from our neighborhood. I thought I was growing up speaking and had no idea that the native peoples were part of my tongue, that Europeans were part of my tongue, and that specifically people from the African coast were a part of my specific tongue. But I was speaking all of these words and talking with this kind of accent, you're going to brought your tante to the stove for sure? Yeah. And I just thought that's how we. It literally was not until I went to college and learned that Louisiana was this Catholic town and all of this interesting stuff that happens in our wonderful state. And so that's what this book is about. It's, you see a little Black kid on the cover, and she has a mixture of English and, Creole French in her language throughout the book. So just to experience that, have children experience.
And what do you hope the people learn from this? This is awesome. Honestly.
Aw,
Because I don't see Filipino in any type of representation in most of our books. So this really, you got like 8 things you can say right now.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be about teaching kids manners, but and then later on, like toddlers were repeating. I thought the catchphrase would be gobble, 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 because then goblins are gobbling up kids who are misbehaving their toys. But their catchphrase is somebody's got to help, because they saw that they thought the kids were turned into pineapples by the mean elves. And they're like, oh my gosh, somebody's got to do something. And I feel like that's a lesson. The kids are telling me that, kids need help, and these naughty goblins I guess they got to do it. Someone's got to do it. Let's see. Yeah, I feel like the manners part, because they didn't say thank you to their grandma when she gave them gifts. That was what is being pitched as a lesson, but I really think it's, helping each other out. Even though, yeah, you're a goblin and kids, and the goblins are scared of the mean elves, but they still try to rescue them.
And now, what do you hope? Because this is a real person. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it even more incredible. It's like Hidden Figures. You watch the movie and you say, now, why didn't I know about these people? So what do you really hope folks learn, and do you hope they Google her?
Yeah, I hope they Google her. And I would definitely say that I hope that young readers and even adults, because sometimes I always say that children's picture books are for adults as well. But I really hope that readers look into themselves and find out what those things that they're passionate about. Like, there are things that kids are introduced to at very young ages, and they're very passionate about it. Just like Yvonne Clark, she took a toaster, our family's toaster, and when it stopped working, she took a paper clip, she twisted, coiled, and curled until she was able to fix the toaster. So those things that kids are passionate about as in their youth, I want them to hold on to those things, because they can turn into wonderful things in the future.
So can we have a discussion about process? Because everybody wants to write a book, right? Or says they want to write a book, but they don't know how the heck to start. Y'all have done it. So let's talk about that. Let's go this way again. What was the hardest part of the process for you, writing or getting your illustrations the way you wanted them?
Oh, so I had no say in the illustrations part of it. That was all the publisher. but it was basically everything that I wrote. She illustrated, so I had no qualms or nothing about that. The hardest part wasn't writing it. It's maybe the going back and forth with the editor, and just the editing part is probably you're like, oh, I didn't know there's something wrong with that. Okay, I'll have to change it. Yeah, writing part is that's the most fun, I guess, for writers. Well, I don't know about everybody, but didn't take me that long. The editing took forever.
For me, I would definitely say the writing was the hard part, just because Yvonne's Clark is filled with like so much information. Like she was introduced to engineering by the Godman fighter pilots. The Godman fighter pilots in Virginia, and so that's when she kind of realized that she wanted to be an engineer, because she thought in order to be a pilot, you had to go to school for engineering. So for me, the writing was the hard part, because I was trying to put like so much information into that story, but I realized that I needed to like focus on that one aspect, and that was her becoming like an aerospace engineer for NASA.
I'd agree with you, Alan. I think the nature of picture books is that they're short, and oftentimes I'm editing and I'm like, so much story, so little space. What am I going to do with this? So you want it typically around like 500 words or under. And so writing a story where you're rooting for the character, that it's a full story arc, it's bringing people in, and the words are beautiful, and it reads well, like even the worst parent reader out loud it'll sing. Combining all of those things is a challenge, but it's a challenge that I enjoy, and I'm sure everyone here enjoys as well, and it's worth it. So I think the nature of the format can be hard. You gotta economize language, but it's always worth it in the end.
So, I agree that the writing process is really the hardest part, going back and forth. And I, unfortunately, fall in love with my words, and I don't want to edit them out. And so I have a critique partner, I'm not going to mention his name, Alan Wells, who will always go, yeah, Pam, that's really pretty. But how does that move your story forward? And I'm like, well, I'll find a way to make it move the story forward. And we always go back and forth with my manuscripts, because, I'm just very, like you, the lyrical language is very important to me. And sometimes it does get in the way of the process of writing. Just tell the story, be as simple as you possibly can, and that's not who I am. I find every way possible to be difficult in every aspect of my life, but, pray my strength. But then with the illustrations, that was an interesting journey as well. I had an illustrator who loves saturated colors. I had in my mind pastel color. But when I saw what she produced and I saw her color aesthetic, I thought, I'm so glad that I kept my mouth shut and allowed her to do her job the way she needed to do the job. And I've deeply fallen in love with my illustrator, Tony D. Chambers. Did a great job.
Yeah, I agree. A hands-off approach with the illustration just opens up so many possibilities, and I've been very fortunate in that everything's come out better than I would have pictured it. I'm sure you guys agree too, because your illustrations are really beautiful.
So I wanted to go there next in the conversation. It's hard to give somebody your work and to accept, right, what they have to say about what, like you said, this is mine. I like this. I want to keep it this way, So what critique did you get that you took with you into, or you will take with you into your next book? What about that? Whoever would like to start.
Oh.
I'll go. What I just said, you want to make sure that, and as Robyn said, you want to make sure that you're telling a story that the audience, your read aloud audience, those kids that are learning to read and those kids that are reading to learn, you want them to be able to fall in love with your character, to root for your character. And sometimes, as Alan said, there's so much information that you want to provide to those readers that might need to end up in the back matter. And the back matter is very important. So please let your kids read the back matter of a book. But you want to put all that information in it, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the story that you are talking about. So what I took to my next book is to be a better editor of my work, be able to look at the information and make sure that I'm being concise. And from scene to scene, that there is this wonderful connection that allows the reader to follow the journey of the protagonist, main character. That's really important. And I've learned a lot from my critique partner. He's a very excellent writer, and he gives really great advice. He really gives great advice.
For me, it was the ending. I had a critique about my ending. I wanted to wrap it up in a nice little bow and just like, and then lesson learned, the end. And the publishers were like, what if you want a sequel? Like, they don't have to solve all of their problems in one book. You could leave it where they learn the lesson in a different book, and they don't learn a lesson. They just, have like this. The conclusion was getting to me. It still gets to me. I'm like, that's not, their problems should be okay now, and I could write a different book. But they're like, no, you could have 10 books, and you don't necessarily have to solve everything in that book. So that's hard.
I agree with them. Stretch the dollar till it holler. Keep going. Book number 10, yes. In 2050, they can solve their problem. What about you?
So I would definitely have to say, an editor actually told me that I write like a screenwriter, because I always have like so many themes in my picture books. And so that's one of the things that I've sort of been working on, is like honing down on one central theme when I write my story. So
I think with every book, I'm just remembering the same things, if that makes sense. So just to cut out the things that aren't necessary. I'm currently writing a draft, and I feel like time is the best editor. So I looked at it like 6 months ago, and I had created this elaborate family. And then now I looked at it this week, and I'm like, oh, this family doesn't need to be here. It can just be this character. So just remembering those things again. Yeah.
You had some good segue lines. Time is the best editor. I want to know how long it took each of you to write your book and get it out.
So I say for me, so I originally wrote Yvonne back in like 2016. Yeah. And so when I wrote it, it was like a cradle to grave story. It was pretty much like, she did this. She went here blank, point A, point B, point C. And so it really wasn't like a full cohesive story. And so when I actually sat down and rewrote it and took out like all of those elements, like the elements of how she wanted to be like a fighter pilot, the elements about her wanting to just fly, period, and focused on how she was this this builder, like this child who grew up building and fixing things, and like focusing on that and using that as the through line. And then like adding in that element of the spark again, because I wanted to, again, connect it to the kids, connect it to young readers. And I feel like a spark, something that they're passionate about, something that they want to pursue, would be that thing that I.
The question I just blanked.
I'll switch. I love it. Time is the best editor. You bad with the words. But how long did it take you to get your book written and get it out?
Oh, that's why I blanked, because I don't really know. Because the pitching was forever, as me to agent, back and forth, then agent to publisher, back and forth, like for 2 years. And then when they finally was like, okay, I love this idea, this is the pitch. And then the contract signed and everything. I wrote it in like a weekend. And then the editing was another year. So yeah, I don't want to say like I wrote it, Saturday. But yeah, it was a long process, but the writing part, because once I got it, the beginning, middle, end, I was like, oh, and I had so much fun writing it. Came out.
I oftentimes just observe the world, and if something is interesting and I think it could be a good story, I write it in a notes app on my phone, and it's ongoing, so the blank page isn't as intimidating. But this I wrote a while ago. So my daughter is 11 now, and it was inspired when she was maybe 3 and came out last year. So I kind of have a few ideas that I go back and forth between, and I did write a board book series during that time, so I was a little busy, but yeah, I don't usually do it all in one go. I kind of just return to things, and finally when I realize, oh, this idea can actually be a story, then I get into it and work intensely over a few months.
So my story started out as a poem in a lyrical language class that I took, and that was like in 2014. And there was no child protagonist. The poem about Louisiana and how we crisscross with our languages. And I just let it go because I didn't know how to add a child protagonist. Everybody kept saying do that, but I didn't. In 2021, I decided that I was going to give myself a birthday present and start submitting to agents. And so I did, and several agents wanted to see more of my work, which was really good. I signed a contract. So I sent it out in November on my birthday. By February, I had a contract. That doesn't happen that fast usually, but I think I knew that it was going to somebody was going to take it. But then came the editing process, and that took a long time because my editor was like, I like your character, but she doesn't have enough depth. And I didn't know what that meant. And you don't ask your editor to be your critique partner. But what do you mean by that? You got to find the depth of your character yourself. So I did some research and learned that when I was growing up, we used to use sugarcane poles to go fishing. But I learned during my research that bamboo grows natively in parts of Louisiana where I live. And that's what most people use they use those bamboo to make rods. So that became the center focus of my story, where the character wanted to have this fishing pole, wanted to be a part of tradition like all young kids do. They wanted to have a role in their family activities, their family traditions. And so I made that character wanting and needing and wishing and longing to have a cane pole from her grandpère and her being a part of family. So from 2014 to 2022.
Can we please just celebrate the fact that every last one of them believed in themselves and got this project? So because I mean, after about 6 months, that's enough. Next, let's do something else. 2 years, 8 revisions. Oh no! But I also wanted to make sure y'all were alert and awake too. So clap one more time. Now, we do have a portion of this where we can ask questions that you might have. So if anyone in the audience has a question, we will pause and let you guys ask these wonderful authors about their stories. Again, that question, just to make sure everybody can hear in the room, how do you deal with the editing process, right? And you had a wonderful life in Illinois. That's what I heard. Okay.
Oh, I was laughing at what you said. My bad. So I would definitely have to say like honing in on like a certain theme would be the most impactful. Like so for example, like again with Yvonne Clark and her engineering spark, I decided to like streamline the theme, like focusing on how she went from a little girl who grew up building and fixing things in her family's home to building and fixing things for NASA. So like honing in on like a central theme, like what is the story that you're trying to tell? What is it that you want readers to know about you and your story?
First of all, it sounds like you have a story that I want to read. And I think a lot of people would want to read, to be honest. I think, it sounds like you've already written some drafts, bringing other people in. So trying to find a critique group, or maybe you have a friend that you trust with, your little baby at first. Maybe you don't want to go to the most critical person at first. So I would do a critique group potentially. And then there's a lot of resources in local places. So I would try to look up, writers groups wherever you are. If you're interested in picture books particularly, SCBWI is a great resource. Society for Children's Writers and Illustrators. Somebody must be a member. Way to go. Okay. So I learned a lot about the business through that. So I'd highly recommend that. They have Zoom calls. So if you're not in a large city, you can be in a regional chapter, and it can really help you out. So that's the first couple things I do.
Yeah, I agree to find community. That's the most important part when you're writing, because you need that soft place to fall, to land when you're having difficulty with your writing, and you want to surround yourself with people who have done the writing before, have been published, because that's people that you want to learn from. And as Alan stated, you can get lost in the research, and you can get lost in the story that you think you want to tell, and you'll start telling about 4 or 5 stories. And you want to make sure that you think about what is it for your read aloud audience that you want them to take away. So they'll say, Mommy, will you read that book to me again? Or Dad, can you pick up that book for me again? Because you want to find something that's universally kid relatable, that a child would want to pick up and say, I want to read this again. And that happens when a child can connect with whatever difficulty your character is having, even in a nonfiction book or memoir book that it seems that you might be trying to write. What will your audience connect with, and what will they like about that character? So it will sustain them through the end of your book.
And when I was working with people, I tended to follow everything that people suggested. So they're like, oh, I think you should change this. I'm like, okay. And then I would do that. And then someone else would have a completely different opinion. They're like, you should do this. And then I'm like, okay. So one thing I learned is with the editing is that, there's some babies that you can, if you really love it, like you can keep, that this, when they say like, you're going to have to learn to kill your baby, something when they,
Darlings.
What did they say? Darlings. Okay, I heard. Maybe that's the Filipino version. But yeah, but you don't necessarily have to. Like, I was taking on every suggestion. So yeah, when you're editing, kind of also they were saying that know what you want, people to take away from it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Oh, I see 2. Okay, go ahead.
You need to have patience you're going to have patience when you're writing. Patience with yourself, and please, please, please give yourself grace when you're writing. The idea doesn't come, do some research. And by research, I mean read other books that's in the genre that you're writing in, because sometimes you can use that as a master study or even a mentor text, right? So read, but do give yourself grace. Do be patient with the process of writing. And once your product is purchased by an editor, really going to need patience with the acquisition process because they have to take it to somebody and sell your product to other people, and that takes forever.
How would you sell your book the second time around? So now that you've written one, yeah.
I feel like I've learned a lot of things over the years, but one is if I'm getting frustrated with the challenge that it is to write a picture book where I'm not finding the right words, just to take a break. I could be walking around and also just remembering that this is supposed to be fun. So the reason I'm doing this and I love fiction is I get to use my imagination and I can push that. And so just remembering that if something's not working, sometimes it's best for me, even if I've developed a full story, just go to a blank page and just go wild with it. And you'll be surprised what will happen with those moments.
Yeah, I would definitely have to reiterate what Pam and Robyn stated because, like I said, with Yvonne Clark, I was so eager to get that story out there. Like I would write it, and then I would try to submit it to an agent, and then of course it'll come back rejected. So I kept doing that over and over. So I started to give myself grace, and I started to become more patient. And I also kind of learned to just focus on something else. So if I feel like I'm not finding that story in that moment, like I just started to write another story or take a trip or cook something, and just take my mind off of the story.
Yeah, I agree. Patience. Publishing is a very long process, and I was not patient with this book. They had, I guess you have to keep it a secret until they publish it on Publishers Weekly, and it took 2 years. And I think I was like, when can I tell people? It was like 2 years of me going, can I tell people now? So patience. I wouldn't put myself through that again.
Another practical thing, you start to get to know the format. So I would encourage you, if you want to write a picture book, to look up Debbie Ohai's website. She has a great layout for different types of picture books, and it'll help you just kind of visualize, because it's not just about the words, it's about the thrill of the page turn and the readability and all of those things. And so with each thing you write, you get to learn more and more about that and get better at it.
All right, I see you.
Tanqueray and orange juice. When I have that's where community is so important. When you have the people that are on the ground doing the work that you're doing, they know what you're going through and they know how you feel, and they can talk you off the ledge, and you end up on the ledge a few times. Because it's a crazy business. You get rejection all the time, and you have to build up some kind of muscle to let you know that all it takes is one yes with all the rejections. When you have self-doubt, and it will come, just know that whatever spark you have in your story, that God put it in your heart for a reason. And you need to tell the story that only you can tell. And you need to make your story so unique that when they pick up your book, they go, oh, that's your brand. That's the kind of, I know that's a Robyn story, or that's a Pam story, or an Alan Wells story, because it's so uniquely told. That takes a lot, but when you know that you have a story that's out there, just lean into that. Let that be, the thing that guides you and keeps you uplifted. Because a child is waiting to hear something bad, right?
I would definitely reiterate what Pam stated, because I can't tell you how many times I've contacted Pam on Facebook Messenger. It was like, let's get on Zoom real quick because I'm struggling with this story, or I'm not understanding how to, write this particular part or something like that. Or here, read this, So having that like community when you're feeling like doubtful is very, very important. And I would also like to say that I would also, along with that, I think about the story that I'm writing. Like, again, I'm working on this story where that introduces kids to like, again, it's similar to like Yvonne Clark and Engineering Spark, where it's kind of like continuing to introduce kids to like their passions. And so for me, I lean into those stories that I'm actually writing. And so when I'm feeling doubtful, I let myself know, hey, this story needs to be written. Hey, this story needs to be told. And I continue to move on after that.
I still have self-doubt. Like sitting here, and our friend Naisha, who drove 2 hours to come, I'm like, why did you drive 2 hours to come? Because you're an author. Like you are an author. Like, and yeah, I'm still having self-doubt. I was rejected over 100 times from agents. So, I mean, I thought I got used to it, but still, now that everything's done, like published and out there, so that's a hard part. That's just kind of like what they were saying, have community to always remind you. It's cool, like you didn't give up and you just kept going. That's cool.
Well, I'd agree with Ellen, just to return back to your why. And it's what you want to tell the kids, and also about the why of why you're doing this to begin with. So I was fortunate enough to have a mom that kept some of my early writings. And so going back to that little girl and being like, wow, this was here all along. I've always enjoyed doing this, It feels a little hard right now, but I'm going to keep going because we all have story arcs too. It's not just our characters. And, there's going to be ups and downs, but overall, I think we're going to come out okay. Yeah.
Can we give them their flowers one more time? Any other questions? See, every time y'all clap, more people come in the hallway. They want to see what's going on. Mind game. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Back to front. Uh-huh.
Well, children's books you can only have, if it's like a fiction, you're limited to about like 500 words, right? And all of my works start off with like a gazillion words, so I have to cut it down. But when you're writing for that particular audience, you have to be conscious of so many things, like whatever age group you're working with. You might be working with 0 to 3, or 3 to 6, or even older. You might be working with 6 to 8-year-olds. So you need to be cognizant of what age group that you're writing for. And that will determine the kind of language that you'll use, the type of wording that you'll use. It'll also dictate your subject matter as well. So I just encourage you to, if you're writing for that younger audience, read tons and tons and tons and tons, so that you'll get a feel for what's out there, what editors are looking for, and just how useful a limited amount of words can be in delivering a message that doesn't have to be didactic. It can be entertaining while you're educating.
I think the answer is yes. I would love to share a lot more because we've written a lot more. So there's so much writing that isn't shared, but I think it's important, especially with world building. For example, with I Worked Hard on That, Kiara started in the city, and then there was a whole journey to the country, and it was just getting very complicated. So I think you want kids to take away a feeling and one thing maybe to remember about a book, and so being able to condense it down to where they experience that in a simple way is what we're here to do. And something that I find encouraging is thinking about all the years that J.K. Rowling spent developing the world building. And she says, there's so many pages, there's so many things you guys have never heard of, but that writing was for me so that I could write what I had. So anytime I get, discouraged about having to kill a darling, I think about that, and it helps me.
I would definitely say for me, like for example, with Yvonne Clark and her engineering spark, there was a lot of technical, I guess, jargon in the story. Like there was a lot of engineering words, and so for me, it was easier to present it through illustrations. And so I would provide my editor with like illo notes of the barrel assembly for certain parts of the rocket. So sometimes it can be implemented like through the illustrations. Like sometimes you'll have the opportunity to like present that story through the illustration.
Hold, please. I'm trying to find it. I know what you're talking about. I want to show it. There it is. All right.
I didn't feel limited at all. I stuffed everything I could into these 40 pages. I like 2 mythologies, 4 goblins, 2 kids. I'm like, put everything, 5 lessons. So, and then even the illustrator added like her little things that I didn't even put in the art direction that makes it more, there's like added Filipino things in there. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I didn't, I guess the type of writer that I am is like, and it's an adventure book, so just put everything in there.
Oh, and I just want to say, I want to give a special shout out to my illustrator, Deandra Hodge, right in the back. Because she literally, she literally understood the assignment. Like, I was going for this superhero effect, and as you look at the illustrations, you see all these, like, amazing stars and bright illustrations. So, yeah. Thank you, Deandra.
Solve.
Oh. Dang it! What was your really main question? Okay, yeah. Yeah, over 100 rejections for a different book that I wrote. And one day Disney was looking for an author that my agent is representing, and that author was too busy. My agent was like, well, I know someone else. So, would you, and then my agent emailed me and said, hey, can I introduce you to Disney? And I'm like, what kind of question? Yeah, of course. So then that's when the ball started rolling. Like was the 2 years or a year or two of pitching back and forth. Like, oh, that's okay, but can you maybe add this? All right, so I'll go back and edit, and then I'll pitch them again. So, and then what was the other question? The yes? I still didn't believe it. Like, I needed that contract in my hand because I thought they would pull it at any. Like, you know what? We changed our minds. Like, so I mean, it was a lot of waiting for that contract, and then between that, like, or even between the pitches and then the yes, it was a long, long time, and I thought they were just gonna say no at any point in that, and that's what I was scared. But then when I finally got the yes, yeah, I think my husband was there, but I couldn't. Yeah, I just fell on the floor. I'm like, I just won the lottery. I don't know how this happened. I don't know. I feel like it's all luck for me.
So excuse me. I met my agent at a conference. She read my first manuscript, Dante Plays His Blues, which is actually set in Jackson, Mississippi, the Ferris Street area, and it's a children's picture book that introduces kids to blues, because of course when you think about Mississippi, you cannot think about the blues, and it teaches kids to turn their blues into their muse, so turn their sadness into joy. So I met my agent at a conference. She read that manuscript, fell in love with that manuscript, and then she started submitting it out to different publishers, because that's typically how it works. You land an agent, and then they'll send your manuscript to sub your manuscript out to different publishers. And then once you hear back from those publishers, they'll either give you provide you with an offer, or they'll send you like a rejection. So the editor that I had met her at a previous conference, and she had already read the manuscript, and she was sort of like ready to buy it and everything. So yeah. I text my mama. But yeah, I text everybody in my phone, like, because my family and my friends know that I enjoy writing. So for me to have my book sold, they were just as excited as I was. So I was just, really elated to share it with them.
So this book is really special to me because, like I said, it was inspired by my daughter, and I was really proud of how hard I worked on the draft, and also I just was happy with the craft and everything. So usually agents send out a first round to your top publishers that you would like to get published with, and then a second and a third, depending on the responses of the publishing houses. So we had done the first round, I think, a couple months prior, and I was just like, okay, this might not get published. I don't know, maybe we're gonna need to go to second round. And I remember I was getting out of the dentist office, and I was living in New York at the time, and I was walking on the street, and my agent called me, and she told me the news. And I just happened to be where a subway entrance was, and all these people were just going quickly out of the subway, and I felt like my world had stood still because I was so happy because the story was so meaningful to me, and I thought this is the best thing I've written so far, and if nobody wants it, that's gonna be a problem. Like, what do I do? So I just took a moment of pause and quiet and accepted it, and then called my husband.
So I submitted a manuscript that nobody wanted. When I submitted it to him, he sent it out. But it was wonderful. He was like, "This is an amazing story. I know this story is going to do well." But then right away there were 13. And he believed in that story so much, and I said, "Well, maybe we need to editing. We need to revise it." He was like, "No, we're not revising a thing." I'm like, "But 13 people said no." So you want to find somebody that is going to root for your story because they are going to really want to sell your story. So when I found out that I had him in particular, I was so happy because I had researched him. I knew what kind of books he agented. I knew what the clients that he had, and I wrote similar to some of his clients. So I was ready to go with him. And when he finally told me, kind of didn't tell anybody, and then like one by one that wasn't the lead of a meeting. I would, at the end of the story, I go, "Well, so James Gowan asked me to be his client." I got the phone call, and they were like, "Way to hide the lead, Pam." But so yeah, when I got the phone call from him, I was so shocked that I didn't share it. I think a little over a month or so. I didn't tell anybody about it, but I had gotten him with a story that's coming out next year that I loved. It was a story of my heart, and nobody wanted. I thought it was going to go to auction and all that kind of stuff, and 13 rejections later. But finally, it just took that 1 year.
All right, so I've been given the signal. We don't have much longer, so we're gonna do this quickly. I'm gonna hold the book up. You say, this is my book, and this is why you should read it. 30 seconds.
My name is Robyn Wall. I worked hard on that is my book. Why you should read it? Please do. I don't know. I worked hard on it. I'm really proud of the craft of it. When I first submitted it, I tried to use as sparse of language as I possibly could because that's what you're encouraged to do. And my editor was like, you can put more literary stuff in this. And I really love that. I think it's a lovely book. And I think also kids relate to working on something and then it getting ruined by a sibling or a dog or like the sun melting a snowman or, things like that.
My name is Alan Wells, and this is my book, Yvonne, Clark and Her Engineering Spark. You should read it because it's about a real-life superhero.
My name is Maika Llaneza, and I wrote the Goblins. I think you should read it. Well, you should look at the illustrations. Ara Villena did a beautiful job. Illustrations are gorgeous. It's okay if you don't read it. Just look at the pictures.
I'm Pamela Courtney, and I am the author of A Season for Fishin, a fish fry tradition. And I think you should read the story because of the cultural diversity that exists in the book. And it's just a sweet story about a young child wanting to belong and finding out she already had the love that she needed in the beginning.
All right, 30 seconds share. Don't clap yet. Don't clap. Go ahead, quickly. Any project that's coming up, don't explain, just the title. Let's go.
So I'm excited to announce I have an autumn unicorn book called Candy the Candy Corn coming out next fall. Okay.
I currently have manuscripts on submission at the moment. Just waiting to hear back.
And also manuscript on submission, also waiting to hear back.
My book coming out in 2026 called Freedom's Eve, a story of Watch Night. It's the night that the enslaved people waited for the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation.
They did it. Look, I got the rap. We were right on time. I'm Kayla Thompson. Thank y'all so much for being here. Thank y'all for writing. Thank y'all for coming.